Where did you print this ID? Looks like a movie prop. The entire guard station burst into laughter as the small woman handed over a faded silver ID card, but when the staff member scanned it just for fun, the screen turned red. The system announced, "Confirmed, biometric match valid, rank, Recon General priority access granted." The entire guard station went dead silent. Her name was Elise Brand, 38 years old, European, long brown hair tied back neatly, small frame, wearing a faded gray jacket with no military insignia. She arrived at the gates of Delta 7 Technical Base, where she had served over 10 years ago. She requested permission to enter to check old equipment storage, carrying a faded silver ID card, the text almost completely worn away. Two young soldiers laughed loudly. Stone Age ID? Maybe this lady reads too many war stories. Elise didn't respond, just quietly handed over the card and stood waiting. A security officer said, "Ma'am, do you know this is a Class A facility? No one gets in without proper authorization." The younger guards snickered among themselves. Probably found that card at a thrift shop. Or maybe she's one of those military wannabes who buys fake gear online. Elise stood patiently, her hands clasped behind her back. Her posture was straight, disciplined, but the guards didn't notice. "Look, lady," one of them said more kindly. "You seem nice, but we can't just let anyone in because they have an old piece of plastic." Another guard chimed in. "These bases have the highest security clearance. Even active duty officers need special permission." Elise nodded quietly. "I understand your protocol, but I believe this ID should still be valid." The guards exchanged glances. There was something about her calm confidence that was unusual. "Valid?" One laughed. "Ma'am, that thing looks like it went through a washing machine multiple times." "And even if it was real," another added, "any clearance from that era would have expired years ago." But Elise just stood there, patient, unwavering. Her eyes held something the young guards couldn't quite identify. Not stubbornness, not entitlement, something deeper, something that spoke of experience they couldn't imagine. "I'll wait as long as necessary," she said simply. The guards looked at each other, unsure how to handle this polite but persistent woman with her mysterious faded ID. CTA Comment Act 1. Have you ever seen someone judged by their appearance? Type so familiar. Elise continued standing, showing no signs of frustration. One staff member decided to scan the ID, just to save her from standing there all day. When the scanner read it, the screen suddenly turned red. The system vibrated softly. Text appeared. Biometric confirmation match, classification, access level 0, Recon General, calling high-level coordinator. The entire station went silent. Someone whispered, "Level 0 is absolute access." Only one person ever held that level for the R-Silent unit. An older officer rushed out from the office, looked at Elise, then froze. Are you the one who led Echo Dark out of Operation Black Sun?" Elise nodded slightly but didn't elaborate. She simply said, "I need access to Storage 14. My equipment is still in there." The older officer, Colonel Martinez, stared at her in disbelief. But you were declared missing in action. The entire R-Silent unit was disbanded after the Borderlands campaign. "I requested to be removed from active records," Elise replied calmly. "I had my reasons." The young guards who had been laughing moments before now looked confused and embarrassed. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could feel the shift in atmosphere. Colonel Martinez pulled up classified files on his tablet. His hands were shaking slightly. "R-Silent unit, covert reconnaissance, Operation Black Sun," he read quietly. "3 special forces teams extracted from abandoned bomb zone. Mission classified beyond top secret." He looked up at Elise. "You saved 67 soldiers. 67. "I did what anyone would do," Elise said simply. "No," Martinez shook his head. "No one else could have done what you did. You spent 4 days behind enemy lines, coordinating 3 separate extractions while under constant fire." The younger guards were starting to understand. This wasn't some random woman with a fake ID. This was someone who had done things they couldn't even imagine. Why did you disappear? Martinez asked quietly. Elise was quiet for a long moment. Because after what I saw, what I had to do, I needed to remember what it felt like to be a normal person again. But why come back now? Because there's still classified equipment in Storage 14, equipment that contains data about our silent operations. I'm the only one left who knows how to properly destroy it. Martinez nodded slowly. The data from the Borderlands campaign. If that fell into the wrong hands. Exactly, Elise said. I've been monitoring the situation. Recent security breaches at other facilities made me realize I couldn't wait any longer. The reality was sinking in for everyone present. This quiet woman in the faded jacket had once been one of the most elite operatives in military history, and she had walked away from it all. CTA Comment Act 2. If you've ever misjudged someone, type, I was wrong. An emergency meeting was called. The officers pulled up old system records. Elise Brandt had held the position of Recon General, our silent unit, operating in dark zones. In 2012, she was presumed missing after the Borderlands campaign. But the truth was, she had voluntarily withdrawn from the system, living anonymously after saving 3 Special Forces teams from a bomb zone that the government had denied responsibility for. The current base commander, General Harrison, was called in. When he saw Elise, his face went pale. Ma'am, he said, standing at attention. I was Lieutenant Harrison, 3rd Reconnaissance. You extracted my team from Grid 7 during Black Sun. Elise looked at him carefully. Tommy Harrison? The young lieutenant with the broken radio? Yes, ma'am. You carried that radio for 12 hours, calling in air support while we were pinned down. The room was completely silent now. Everyone was beginning to understand who they were dealing with. I never got the chance to thank you, Harrison continued, his voice thick with emotion. When we got back to base, they told us you had been reassigned. Classified location. I requested it, Elise said simply. I needed to disappear. But why? Asked Colonel Martinez. You were being recommended for the highest honors. The president himself wanted to meet you. Elise was quiet for a long moment. Because I had seen too much, done too much. The things we did in those dark zones, they weren't supposed to exist. The truth began to come out. Operation Black Sun hadn't been a standard military operation. It had been a cleanup mission, removing evidence of illegal weapons testing, extracting soldiers who had been deliberately sent into danger zones. Elise had been the one who discovered the truth, and she had made sure every soldier got out alive, even though it meant exposing the cover-up. They offered me a promotion, she continued, a desk job, a comfortable retirement. All I had to do was sign a non-disclosure agreement and forget what I had seen. But you didn't, Harrison said. No, I told them I would keep their secrets, but I wouldn't pretend to be proud of them. The room was heavy with understanding. Elise hadn't just been a hero. She had been a whistleblower who chose silence over reward. So you disappeared, Martinez said. I became a civilian, worked in a small clinic, helped people in a different way. But you kept your clearance, Harrison observed. They couldn't revoke it. I knew too much, so they just let me fade away. Harrison stepped forward. Ma'am, on behalf of everyone you saved, everyone you protected, thank you. He saluted her. Then, one by one, every officer in the room followed suit. Even the young guards who had been laughing at her ID card stood at attention. Elise accepted the salutes with quiet dignity. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because it was right. We know, Harrison said, but we needed to say it anyway. CTA Comment Act 3. If you've ever owed someone a thank you, write, I owe gratitude. Elise completed her mission, destroying the classified storage devices. She didn't accept an escort. She didn't let anyone drive her back. Before leaving, she left a note in the commander's office. If anyone ever laughed at my faded ID card, let them hold one like it. And remember, not all metals shine bright. Some have been burned through 3 battle lines. A few weeks later, Delta 7 Base installed a small glass case near the guard station. Inside was a replica of a faded silver ID card with an inscription: "The person who doesn't need to prove anything. The person who once saved an entire unit with just their name." But Elise herself, she returned to her quiet life. Back to the small clinic where she worked as a nurse practitioner. Her patients never knew that the gentle woman who checked their blood pressure had once coordinated the most dangerous military extractions in modern history. Her co-workers never knew that she had turned down the highest military honors to maintain her principles. Only occasionally, when a young veteran came to the clinic struggling with PTSD, would Elise sit with them a little longer, listen a little more carefully. And sometimes, just sometimes, she would share a story about someone she once knew. Someone who had made it through the darkest places and found their way home. She never said the stories were about her. She never claimed to be anyone special. But the veterans who met her, they knew. They recognized something in her eyes, something that spoke of shared understanding. 6 months later, a young soldier came to the clinic. He had been one of the guards who had laughed at her ID card. He didn't recognize her at first. She was just another medical worker in scrubs. But when she smiled at him, something clicked. "Ma'am, didn't we meet somewhere before?" Elise just smiled. "I meet a lot of people. How can I help you today?" He never mentioned the ID card, but he left that day with a new understanding of what real heroism looked like. CTA Comment Act 4. Type, "I will live kindly." If you believe that silence can still be the greatest medal of all. Elise didn't wear a uniform. She didn't speak loudly. She didn't demand recognition. But with just one ID scan, the entire system had to stop and acknowledge someone who had once held the survival line. In this world, there are people who choose silence, not because they're weak, but because they've stood where no one else dared to go. Live with kindness. And next time, if someone shows you a faded ID card, don't laugh. You might be standing in front of a legend. The real lesson isn't about hidden heroes or dramatic reveals. It's about the quiet dignity of people who have already proven themselves to history, but choose to serve in smaller ways. It's about recognizing that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. And sometimes the most powerful people are the ones who walk away from power. Elise Brandt teaches us that real heroism isn't about glory. It's about doing what's right, even when no one will ever know. Even when walking away costs you everything. Final message. The faded ID cards often belong to the brightest souls.